Hey guys, it's July the 11th, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful day so far today. It is smoking hot outside right now. Like I was talking about yesterday, it rained for the most part of the whole day yesterday, and it rained again last night, and today the sun has come out like full force, and it's so hot and humid out here right now. Like, you can feel the air. It is so thick from the humidity. But at least it's not raining again, so got that going for us. Although I think it's supposed to rain this afternoon around like 5 or 6 o'clock. And tomorrow morning I think we have rain. But I think Sunday we're in the clear. So we'll see how this all works out. I do have to, I have to go have that tooth extracted this week. I'm not looking forward to that. Have to go do that on Wednesday morning. So I'll be still filming a video that day. It'll just, I'll probably be a little bit, a little bit out of it probably when I film. My face is probably going to be a little bit swollen, but I still plan on filming a video. I've done one the past few times I've had teeth extracted. They do put me under when I have these teeth done. So once I get myself together on Wednesday, I'll go ahead and come outside and film the video for that day. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about today is something that I've been kind of thinking about since yesterday afternoon. I don't know why this thought came to me, but yesterday afternoon it just started kind of rolling around in my head. And before I came out here today to sit down and film today's video, I was taking a shower, and I had a couple of ideas I was tossing around to discuss in today's video, and this one just kind of stuck out to me, and I just decided to go with this one. And I know that here recently, a lot of my videos have leaned pretty heavily on, not going back to drinking, having that one drink, starting to cycle back over again, and, a lot of like stuff that's for like people that are newer to sobriety. But I just feel like, especially with 4th of July weekend that just passed, there's a lot of people on here that, are new to sobriety, that have decided that they want to turn their life around, because weekends like 4th of July weekend are, big ones for a lot of us. We'll go out 4th of July weekend or a similar weekend like that and get wasted drunk, either do something that we really regret doing, or either we get into trouble, or, we drink to the point where we end up in the hospital with alcohol poisoning, or we get sick from drinking so much, or you just end up with like a horrendous hangover that lasts for multiple days in a row, and you feel like you're never going to be able to get over it. A lot of people decide, after a weekend like that, like, I've had enough of this. I'm ready to turn my life around. I'm ready to change things for the better and get my life back. And I completely understand that. I tried to get my life back in order so many times and tried so many different approaches to sobriety, and just none of them ever stuck for me. I could not ever figure it out. I always would go back, because I always told myself, I always fooled myself into thinking that I've got this figured out this time. This time I've got it figured out, and I could, have one beer. I can just have one beer or 3 beers. And like I was talking about in yesterday's video, I would often make it. First day I'd be able to do it. Second day, maybe. And by the third day, if I made it that long, I was always back to the vodka. And, I was drinking more than I was drinking before, because I had this idea in my head, like, well, now I really deserve it. And there was also this thought of, well, I've broken the seal. So, at this point, I've already done it. So I might as well enjoy myself. I'm going to quit tomorrow. But today, I'm going to drink as much as I want to, because, I've already relapsed. What's the point in quitting again before I've had my opportunity to get as drunk as I want to? So I'm just going to drink for today, but tomorrow I won't drink anything at all. And that would go on for days and days and days, and before you know it, it's been months or years until I try to quit again. But anyway, although I went on that tangent, it still applies to what I want to discuss today. And I know that this, once again, has to do with kind of early sobriety, but it could apply to anything and anyone, any situation. And what that is that, like I said, I was thinking about this before I came out here, about how when we get in early sobriety, especially right in the beginning of our sobriety, how overwhelming it can all seem. It's completely overwhelming. Just everything overwhelms you. You know, already the fact that you're withdrawing from whatever the substance is overwhelming in itself. You can't stop thinking about whatever the substance is, especially alcohol. You know to your core that if you go back and have a drink, that these feelings are going to go away. If you go back to whatever the substance is, all these thoughts, these feelings, you will go back to feeling normal again. And we know that fix is, right around the corner, if not sitting in your refrigerator already. And like I said, it can just be so overwhelming in the beginning. Sorry, I had to pause that for a second so I could take a big swig of water. Like I said, it's hot out here. I didn't want to be sitting here on camera just slamming a bottle of water, but anyway, back to the beginning of our sobriety being overwhelming. I was just thinking about this analogy before I came out here, and it's, if any of you guys have ever worked in the restaurant industry before, and I'm just going to use this one analogy, and I've got another one after this, but if you've ever worked in the restaurant industry before, especially if you've worked in the kitchen, and you've done like banquet stuff too, especially that kind of work, at the end of a big, like let's say you have a big wedding or some big event, like a 500 person event, at the end of that, the dishes that come from a big banquet like that can be so overwhelming. Not only are you getting the chafers, which are the big containers that hold the food hot, you're getting all those brought back to the kitchen, you're getting all the hotel pans that go inside of those chafing dishes, and all this stuff has to be scrubbed down and cleaned at the end of the party. So you're getting all the chafer dishes, and if you've got like a 500 person event, you're going to have at least 20, 25 chafers, hot chafers, that have, the fuel underneath them. The chafers are smoking hot. They've got water in them. You've got to clean the whole entire thing. So you've got all these huge chafers, all the hotel pans that were in them that had food in them. And then that food has been sitting in these chafers staying hot. So all that food is encrusted along the sides of the hotel pans. That's all that food's got to be scraped out of the hotel pan and then scraped and cleaned again. A lot of times you've got to soak them for a little bit before you can get all that food out. So you've got all of these hotel pans, chafing dishes. Then you've got the pots and pans from the kitchen from all the food that they cooked for the event. And then you've got extra hotel pans, that they were holding backup hot food in. A lot of times that stuff's trash. You've got it sitting in hot boxes. You got to throw all that food away, then clean those hotel pans. And then you've got all the dishes that come from the banquet. And if you have a 500 person event, probably each person's going to use at least one big plate, and then they'll each use an appetizer plate, if not a couple. And then you have all the cups and glasses, wine glasses. And then if you did like soup, you'll have soup dishes, dessert dishes. A lot of the times you'll have a buffet, but you'll have like a salad that's pre-plated for the whole entire event, and you'll pass out the salad to everyone. All those plates come back. So there you got 500 plus salad dishes that are going to come back from that event. And then you've got all the buffet plates that are going to come back from that event. And then at the end, a lot of times you'll have like a plate of dessert. So you're going to get all those dessert plates, and then you'll have like a little demi-tasse, like a little amuse, like a sorbet or something like that. That might be like an intermezzo in between a course or something like that. You've got to clean all those. There's just a ton of dishes. And, you'll have a couple different places back in the kitchen. You'll have the dish area where they're running dishes through the dish machine. And then you'll have a 3-well sink. A lot of times, most kitchens will have 2 big 3-well sinks. You've got dishes piled from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. And I'm not kidding right now. For any of you guys who've worked in a restaurant, you know what I'm talking about. There's pans everywhere. There's dishes everywhere. there's stacks, because all the cups, they go on these big racks, and you place them in the racks upside down, and then you wash them through the dish machine. The dish machine will clean them and sanitize them and all that. When they come out of those racks, they still have to polish the glassware after the fact, but you've got stacks and stacks and stacks of these wine glasses and cups, because not only do a lot of times you have a wedding or something, you have people that are going to have a white wine with a course and then a red wine. They'll have a white and a red wine glass on the table, a water glass on the table, there's tea glasses. I mean, there's just stuff everywhere, not to mention all the silverware that has to be cleaned, all the kitchen utensils. I know that I'm going into really deep detail on this, but I'm really just trying to give the context while the point I'm trying to make here is that all of those dishes and all that dirty dishware and stuff that's back there in the kitchen just signifies, all of the stuff that's overwhelming you in the beginning of your sobriety. All those dirty dishes are the anxiety, the nausea, the headaches, the overwhelming feeling of wanting to drink, just every aspect of early sobriety, as we're going through that withdrawal process. And, once again, you've got this huge pile of stuff that's just piling up, and when you first encounter it, you look at it and you're like, there's just no way. There's no way I can do all of this. I've walked back into the kitchen so many times, it's already midnight, and we just finished clearing off the whole entire buffet and all that stuff. We just finished breaking down the tent, because a lot of times, we'd rent a huge tent for these big events because we couldn't hold the whole event inside the building. So, just outside, we had just cleared that whole tent area. But there's all this other stuff that gets brought back to the kitchen. I haven't seen all this stuff yet. I've been out front with my guys clearing stuff, and then next thing you know, I walk back to the kitchen after we finish clearing everything out there, and here's this huge mountain of dirty dishes. And like I said, it can be just so overwhelming. And that's the beginning of our sobriety. But at some point, you have to just go ahead and dive in and get started. I mean, it's just what you have to do. It can seem so overwhelming. And I remember walking back in the kitchen so many nights going, we're never going to get out of here. It's going to be tomorrow afternoon before we're done cleaning all this stuff. You just look at it and your jaw hits the floor and you don't even know where to start because it's just so much. And you're sitting there telling yourself, like, there's no way we're going to be able to get all this stuff cleaned up. I mean, like I said, it's going to be tomorrow afternoon before we're done. And a lot of the times, too, the front of the house staff, they finish cleaning up the front and they're gone. The kitchen staff would be there till who knows what time in the morning, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes we're still in there cleaning all that stuff up. But once again, you walk back there and you see this huge mountain of dishes and you're just like, how are we going to get this stuff done? Same thing with our sobriety, but at some point you just got to grab a rag or a sponge or stainless steel pad, some soap, and you just got to dive in and get started, because it's not going to clean itself if you don't start at some point. Like those dishes aren't going to clean themselves, so you have to get in there and just start scrubbing. And I know that, like I said, if you've ever been through this before, if you ever worked in the restaurant industry and had to go through this, when you start to dive in, you're getting one pan done at a time. And, you look back at your pile that you still got, it doesn't even look like you've even done anything yet. But slowly but surely, as you start to work through these dishes, you decide. Because a lot of times I'd have to organize stuff and say, okay, I'm going to do all this first, and then I'm going to do this stuff next. A lot of times it was like the chafing dishes, because that was like the biggest thing that I wanted to get out of the way. So I'd get all my guys together. Each one of us would take a position at the sink, and one guy would be in the dish area, another guy would be over there helping put the stuff away. One guy's running them through, the other guy's putting them up. And, one guy be scrubbing, another guy be dunking in the sink, and the other guy be sanitizing. And we'd work our way through those chafing dishes. Okay, well, now we've got all those big chafing dishes out of the way. Now we just have the hotel pans, sheet pans, and all that other stuff. And I forgot to mention, too, a lot of times when you have a big event like that, you rent the plateware because they want to have, a certain type of plate. They'll have these really pretty plates. And a lot of times the places, they just don't have 500 plates to be able to do a banquet like that. So you rent them from like a party company. So all those dishes have to go back into these crates that hold the dishes. They have to be put back away and then wrapped up with cellophane and then set outside for the company to come pick up the rentals the next day. So there's a lot of making sure that stuff goes back to where it goes. It has to be placed outside for the rental company to come pick it up. There's just a lot involved. And like I said, it looks overwhelming, but at some point you just got to dive in and get started on it. And slowly but surely, those chafing dishes get knocked out. Then the hotel pans get knocked out. Then all the sheet pans get knocked out. Meanwhile, they're doing all the other dishes. Excuse me. And slowly but surely, those dishes start to get knocked down. That mess that was once piled up to the ceiling now is head high, and before you know it, you've only got 100 sheet pans left to clean, and you're starting to see your way out of it now. You're finally at the point where you're like, we're almost done with this. What seemed impossible in the beginning, just by putting your head down and just doing it, at some point you're going to get to a place where you're almost done. And then eventually, at some point, whatever time of the night, you're finally washing that last sheet pan. And then you're emptying out all those sinks, draining everything up, cleaning everything down, wiping down all the stainless. You're getting your guys to sweep up the floor and mop one last time, and then you're walking out the door. And once again, what seemed impossible just got done. And this doesn't necessarily have to apply to the restaurant industry either. If you've ever been in, let's say, a natural disaster or something like that, a hurricane or a tornado or a big flood, there's a lot of floods happening right now in Texas and New Mexico, and my prayers are out for any of you guys that live in these areas, and anybody that's been affected by these floods. I pray for all of you. It's devastating floods that are happening. But once again, if you've ever been in a natural disaster area, it can seem like it's impossible to clean up. After a hurricane comes through, or a tornado, or a big flood and destroys everything, there's trash and debris and clothes and people's houses that are knocked down, and shingles all over the place, and trees knocked down as far as you can see, and branches everywhere, and leaves scattered all about, and just everything is a disaster. It's a wreck. You take a look at it after the fact and you're like, I don't even know where to even get started with this. Now, I do want to preface this really quick and interject this in here. Before you attempt to get sober, if you are not already sober, and this is something that you have been considering, you're really thinking hard about trying to attempt, please speak with a doctor first. Quitting alcohol or benzodiazepines abruptly can be life-threatening. It's one of those things that they just don't talk about a lot. But just quitting alcohol, if you've been drinking for the past 10 years every day, don't attempt to just go quit cold turkey, because it could be disastrous. Quitting alcohol, next thing you know, you can have seizures. All kinds of bad things can happen. Delirium tremens, you can hallucinate, start seeing things. It can be terrifying, and there are ways around that. If you speak with your doctor, you're completely honest with them about the amount that you're drinking, the frequency of your drinking, all of these things. Let your doctor decide where they want you to go from here, because they can put you through a medical detox. I went through a medical detox. When I got sick, ended up in the hospital for the first time, I went through a medical detox while I was in the hospital. That first week I was in there, I was on a medical detox, and I attribute that medical detox to the fact that I was finally able to get sober, because that first week can be so difficult to go through, and it helped me out, like I said, tremendously. But once again, it could be a natural disaster, that you've experienced. And, you look around after it happens and you're just like, where do we start? I don't even know where to even begin. But you have to start somewhere, and it's the same thing with sobriety. You know, at some point, you got to put your shoes on and just walk outside and start picking branches up off the ground. Start picking trash up off the ground. You know, you grab a trash bag and just slowly but surely start cleaning things up. We just recently, last year, had a hurricane that came through here, and that hurricane was Hurricane Helene. We had no idea that it was going to be as bad as it was. You know, we've had lots of hurricanes come through this area, but none that have ever come through like the eye came right through where we're at. And it really messed up the area that I live in. There were trees down everywhere. We didn't have power forever. There were trees down all across my driveway, trees down all in my yard. It took us up until just a couple of months ago that we finally got the rest of that mess cleaned up. And there's still stuff back there that we still need to clean up. There's trees that got broken in half that we still need to finish cutting down. We made sure that there's nothing that's going to endanger any of the animals. I cut all of that stuff down, but there's still stuff back there that still needs to be cut down because there's trees that got broken just right in half. But once again, you know, it took us like almost a year to get that mess cleaned up. It seemed like we were never going to be able to get that stuff cleaned up. We had this pile of wood back there by where the horse paddock is. That was back there forever. And I mean, it was like 4.5, 5 feet tall of just wood. Big branches, trees. I mean, I had stuff that was as round as I am that was laying on the ground back there. And I thought that we were never going to be able to get that stuff cleaned up. But slowly but surely, we were able to get it done. And it's the same thing with our sobriety. We have to start somewhere. You know, it's like that saying, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like, you know, the path to 1,000 miles starts with one step. At some point, you have to make that first step. At some point, we have to decide that, you know, today's going to be the day. Today, I'm gonna make an attempt at this. That's the first step. And like I said, it's just like those dirty dishes. It's just like that big hurricane or that tornado that came through. You know, there's this humongous mess. At some point, we just have to go in and just start picking up the trash or cleaning the dishes, and we'll eventually make our way through it. But it has to start somewhere, and we have to make that initial first step. It can seem impossible. There's a lot of things in life that seem like they're impossible, but it can be done. It's kind of like the Grand Canyon. You know, if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon before and stood on the edge of the cliff and looked down, you know, it's like, what, a mile deep or something like that? It's insane how deep the Grand Canyon is. And when you look down in there, you're like, you know, how did a river create this? That's if I'm right about that, but I'm pretty sure the Colorado River and erosion and all that kind of stuff, but you know, millions of years of time, erosion, and that river flowing through there has eroded that ground to what it is now. It didn't happen overnight. It took time. And it's the same thing with our sobriety. It's one day at a time. And in the beginning of our sobriety, it can often be 1 minute at a time. You know, it might be 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time. You know, you just have to tell yourself, I'm going to stay sober for the next minute. I'm going to stay sober for the next 5, the next 10 minutes, the next 30 minutes, the next hour. You know, eventually you get to the point where you're telling yourself, okay, I'm going to stay sober. It's 12 o'clock. And you say, I'm going to stay sober until 1 o'clock. I'm just going to make it until 1. Because that 24-hour period might be too overwhelming. You might have to break it down in little chunks like that. You know, I'm going to stay sober till 1. You make it to 1. Now I'm going to stay sober till 2. You make it till 2. Now I'm going to stay sober until 3. And so on and so forth. But, you know, like I said, every single piece of our sobriety has to start somewhere. We have to make that initial first step. It goes back to those dirty dishes. You have to pick up a dish and just start. It goes back to that hurricane, that tornado, that natural disaster. You have to go outside and just start picking stuff up at some point. It's not going to clean up itself. And you're not going to get sober without starting somewhere. After you've spoken with your doctor, of course. But until you just go ahead and go for it, if your doctor is giving you approval to move forward with getting sober, you know, after you've gotten that go ahead, it's up to you to make that first step to go for it. I know it can seem so overwhelming. You know, you don't know what to do with yourself. You don't know how to deal with your emotions. You don't know how to deal with anything. You don't know if you're ever going to have fun again, because every time that you did anything fun, alcohol was included. As a matter of fact, anything that you did, alcohol was included in it. So now anything that you do, you don't know how to do it because you don't have your alcohol along with you to do it. It could be something as simple as just making an omelet. You know, if you drank when you cooked, now what do? I don't even know how to even make my own breakfast now. You know, I don't have my alcohol. How do I have breakfast? How do I get my day started? How do I have lunch? How do I make my dinner? How do I go to work? How do I do any of these things with baby steps? It takes time. It takes time adjusting to this new life. It's not going to happen overnight, and you can't expect it to. You know, like I said, if you've been drinking for the last 10 years every single day, you can't expect to wake up tomorrow morning and go, you know what, I'm going to get sober, and you're just going to sit right into it like a custom-made seat. It's not going to happen. It takes time. It's like, you know, it's like breaking in a leather jacket or something. You know, the first time you get a leather jacket, they're stiff. They don't feel all that great. You're wondering if you really made a good purchase. You know, I've never owned a leather jacket, but I'm just assuming that, you know, from looking at people who wear them, that when you first buy a leather jacket, they're stiff. You know, they probably don't feel all that great. But as time goes on, those leather jackets, the more and more you wear them, they wear in. The leather gets softer. They become super comfortable. Next thing you know, you're wearing that leather jacket all the time. Same thing with sobriety. You know, it takes time to break it in. It takes time to get used to. And as you know, the further out that we get, the more accustomed to the sobriety we're going to become, the more used to it that we become, the more practiced that we are, and the more comfortable that we become in it. But it all has to start somewhere. It starts with one step. It starts with that one hotel pan, and it can start with that one piece of trash, that one shingle after a hurricane. You got to start somewhere. And like I said, the same thing applies to our sobriety. So anyway, like I said, I was just thinking about that analogy today, and I thought I would share it with you guys because it truly is. Like I said, it can be very, very overwhelming in the beginning. It seems like just so much is coming all at you at once, and you don't know what to do about it. But take it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, however you have to. But take that first step. And you never know where you might end up. This could be the first step to your best life. So with that said, guys, I hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of your Friday today. By the way, happy TGIF to all you guys. I know a bunch of you are probably about to start your weekend and you're super excited about it. So I hope you guys have a wonderful start to your weekend. And until tomorrow, I will see you guys then. Y'all have a great rest of your day.